I have the Fuji X-T2 here, and I've been using it up and down the West Coast for the last month, from Southern California to the most northwestern point in the lower 48 states, and I'm ready to share my opinions about this camera. But if you're paying attention to the release date of this video, and you know the release date of this camera was over a year ago, why am I bothering to review it now? Well, honestly, I would love to have the time and resources to give you all reviews of every new piece of gear in a timely fashion. But the reality is that just isn't going to happen. I have to make sacrifices. I have to say, how will this camera sell? What do you all want to hear more about? And Fuji's often been lower down on that list, behind Canon, Nikon, and Sony. But does the Fuji X-T2 change all of that? Let's talk about it. All right, so I want to spend a few moments talking about the highlights of the Fuji X-T2, things that you should be aware of. And the first is, the operating and interface is quite different from most other cameras on the market. It's actually very interesting to put this camera in the hand of beginners or even seasoned pros. If they've only shot Canon or Nikon, they really struggle without a mode dial to figure out exactly what they need to do to get the camera to do what they want. But once you get used to it, you realize that this camera is very well thought out and designed, and you've got these physical dials and buttons for just about everything you want to do. And I find myself shooting more and looking at the screen less, not having to even dive into the quick menu to find settings I want, because those buttons and dials are right there on the camera, and I really appreciate that. But it does take some getting used to. Now, another issue that in the past has held these Fujis back from widespread adoption is the focusing system. They typically haven't been the best. And I'm not going to recommend an older Fuji to somebody who wants an all-around camera and maybe has kids that are playing sports. They haven't been that capable and that fast in focusing. The Fuji X-T2 really changes that and has a very capable focusing system and tracking system in here that I've been impressed with and would be happy to recommend to anybody. Now, it wouldn't be my first choice for birds in flight or other serious action, but as a general all-around camera, including capturing your kids playing sports, it does just fine. Now, one of the things to be aware of was with some of the older lenses, you don't get that autofocusing speed even with the improvements in the X-T2. For instance, the 56 f1.2, it's not the fastest focusing lens out there. But lens-wise, you have a fantastic selection within the Fuji ecosystem, and you've got some great qualities. I mean, even the kit lenses, this is what I've been mostly shooting with for the last month. The 18 to 55, f2.8 to f4, the 18 to 135, for many of you might be the only lens you need. It's a weather-sealed, high-quality kit lens that you can buy in these packages. But you want to go smaller, you want to have a little bit more control over your aperture, you can pick up something like the 35 f1.4, or I think the f2 is a little bit of a better value, or this beautiful portrait lens, the 56 f1.2. These are all fantastic lenses. You know, in between trips, this camera's been sitting on my desk alongside the 6D Mark II. You can watch that review linked right above or right down below this video, and I keep asking myself, which one do I want to walk out the door with? I'll answer that in a minute. And which one do I think you all should walk out the door with? I mean, funny enough, the 6D Mark II is a lot bigger, but doesn't give you the dedicated focus point joystick and doesn't give you dual card slots that X-T2 does. I mean, Fuji really seems to listen to photographers' needs, and some of these recent firmware updates over the last year have been really sweet as well. Now, there is a downside to the Fuji system, and that's that X-Trans sensor. You know, I should say it's only a downside if you really use Lightroom and you really care about peak performance in Lightroom, because the files are a little sluggish in Lightroom. Some people have better luck with Capture One or one of the other systems. I don't really feel like learning a new system. And honestly, coming from a Sony a7R II, the files don't seem any more sluggish than my 90 megabyte uncompressed RAWs from the Sony. But one of the nice things about the Fuji is these JPEGs that come straight out of the camera are beautiful. They are lovely. You pick one of those film simulations or one of the black and white film simulations especially, and you get fantastic quality straight out of the camera, and that's pretty sweet. This camera really feels like made for somebody who enjoys the shooting experience more than the post-processing experience. On the video side of things, I love that you can apply those same film simulations to that 4K footage. That's right, this camera now shoots 4K, and it is beautiful 4K. You are limited to just 10-minute clips in camera, 30 minutes if you throw the battery grip on. And this wouldn't be my first choice or recommendation for somebody that video was their first priority. But again, the quality of the images or the video coming out of this camera is lovely. Apply those film simulations, and right out of camera you can be creating some beautiful footage. All right, so I talk a lot about these cameras being tools. As a content creator, I want a tool that's going to make my job easier, one that allows me to get photos and video easily, and the Fuji does that very nicely. Last year, I talked to you all about going lighter, simplifying, maybe just to one system. Currently, I use the GH5 for videos and vlogging, and the Sony a7R II for mostly photos. And I'd love to simplify and go to one system, and a lot of you recommended the Fuji. Well, the lack of fully articulating screen does hold the vlogging side back a bit, but otherwise, this is a fully feature-packed camera that I love. I mean, some other things that I didn't touch on: a high burst rate, takes tons of pictures with that autofocus tracking working really well. The IAF works fantastic and makes portraits easier. You've got an intervalometer built in. You can do up to 15-minute long exposures. And going back to that travel friendliness, you can charge it over USB. So again, a lovely camera that looks good, is fun to use. Would I recommend it over the 6D Mark II? I would pick the Fuji X-T2, and for many of you, I recommend it over the 6D Mark II. But don't get me wrong, it's definitely not the best camera for everybody, but Fuji has done a lot to really bring this camera, in my opinion, to the forefront of the mirrorless market. Now, there are a lot of other competitors that you should compare this to when considering your next camera. I've outlined many of those down below. But wouldn't it be nice if there was one place that you could go and tell someone your needs and they'd recommend the best camera for you? If you found this video helpful, give it a quick thumbs up, and don't forget that links to buy everything I mentioned are right down below. Your use of those links helps this channel. And hit that subscribe button along with that little bell notification so you'll be notified of future videos, gear reviews, tips, tricks, and travel stuff. Thanks so much for watching. Bye-bye.